So where were you born and who were your parents?
I was born at Miles Hospital in Damerscotta to Frank Farrin and Marjorie Lewis Farrin. Grew up in South Bristol. I'm still growing up now.
That's good.
I'm working on it. My older brother Dennis and a younger sister Kathleen. My favorite subject in school was reading. I loved school. I thought school was the greatest thing, and there were eight students in my class, and at recess we used to go out and play in the woods and make little playhouses, and there was never anybody on duty. We just went out and played. But yes, school was great for me. We used to play dodgeball and red light, giant steps. Yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah. It was good. It was good. Our school was across from the church and post office at South Bristol,
Okay.
in South Bristol. So there were 2 rooms downstairs with grades 1, 2, 3 on the left, 4, 5, 6 on the right. And then at 7th grade, we went upstairs with the high school kids. So we pretty much thought we were in high school at 7th grade. And we changed classes, and just like the high school kids. Yeah, it was a fun time. We lived up off the Thompson Inn Road, up on a hill. You could look down and see the harbor. But we were, yes, up there on the hill was actually a group of 5 summer cottages, and my dad bought one in 1947 when I was 6. So, and he winterized it somewhat, and there we were. Dad took over the Farrin store from his father Afton, and he ran Farrin's store, which bought and sold lobsters, and had some groceries, cigarettes, penny candy. I got to work there when I was 12. I used to, so at 13 I was weighing lobsters, pumping gas, and dragging bait.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a wonderful job. Got to meet a lot of people. Right. Yeah, it was a good place to work, right on the harbor, yeah. Oh, when I was in high school, I collected salt and pepper shakers. So wherever we went, I would get some salt and pepper shakers, yes. And my aunt would send me some from places where she was traveling. I remember the high school went to, as a trip, we went to Mount Washington. And some of the boys climbed the mountain, but most of us didn't. So, but I bought my salt and pepper shakers in the gift shop. Yes. My daughter has them now. They're all boxed up, and she has them in her attic. No, before I went to work at Farrin's for my dad, I used to babysit my sister so that my mom could go down and help my dad in the store. But that was pretty much it. I think the best thing about growing up in South Bristol was that we all knew each other. The kids all knew each other. We all knew the parents. We could come and go. We could, we didn't have to knock on the door to go into one of our friends' houses. You'd just go in, and if they were having peanut butter sandwiches, you got one too. And I just think it was all just very good, and we all played together after school. Kicked the can or baseball, and so yeah, I think that was the best thing was that we all knew each other, because we used to get disciplined by the other parents too. Parents would take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. Yes.
What was the worst thing about?
I've thought about that question. I can't. I don't think of any worst thing. I just don't. Yeah, no, it was all good for me. Well, I left high school after my sophomore year. Howard and I decided we would get married and start our own home. And we did. So we were married in August, and the next August, Chuck was born, and then the next August, Sean was born, and within 8 years we had 6 children and had bought a home. Yeah, it was good. When and then when, gee, I was almost 30 and I got my high school diploma at that point. So, yeah. You know, I married Howard. Howard and I, Howard was a Bristol Mills guy, and now I attend the church in Bristol Mills quite often, and that was Howard's church and his parents' church.
Just congregational church.
Congregational church,
So
yeah.
Jimmy Plummer was,
Howard's dad, so my father-in-law.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. He
Makes
probably was he your bus driver?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Wonderful man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was Walter, him,
Yeah.
Walter Richards, they must have worked with each
Oh, yes, they worked together. Yes, they did. I stayed home with the kids. When they got older, I was rather like a seasonal worker, I decided. So I would clean summer cottages in the spring, and in the summer I would pick up any little job around town that I might. I was a waitress one summer, and in the fall I picked apples, and in the winter I shelled shrimp for my dad's store. Yeah, it was good. It was wonderful.
Awesome.
Yes, they could walk home for lunch from school, and then I was there when they came home after school. So I was able to attend all the school events, and it was good. When Toby was 9, I got a job in the school system. So for 29 years I worked for 15 years in South Bristol as a remedial math and reading tutor, and then the 12 years in Bristol as a special ed tech. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was on the school board. Let me see, part of the historical society. I was active in our church.
If you could give a piece of advice to the next generation, what would it be?
I think it would be to be patient and understanding and accepting of all the differences that constantly change. Our life constantly changes, and to be happy, be a contributing citizen, laugh a lot, love a lot. Yes, that was right next door to Farrin's store, and Gene Tunney had purchased the big building so that he had a dock and a float and a base for when they would come out to John's Island, that they would have a place to stay. It was living quarters on the top floor. It used to be a place that sold fish when I was a kid. Irving Clifford sold fish there. Irving always wore slippers. But anyway, so the Tunneys purchased that, and they were able to, as I said, if they come in the middle of the night, they could sleep there, and Alec Ropes would ferry them out to their island the next day with groceries and luggage and all that. Probably
There.
weighed many lobsters that would go out there.
Too, yeah.
Right. I was part of the cleaning crew for Alec Ropes, who was the caretaker of the cottage on the island. So yes, well, I guess that might be one of my favorite stories. I always joke that that I was fortunate enough to clean the toilet that President Kennedy sat on. So I would sometimes add that I still haven't washed my hands. So so it's good. So it did get to do that. That was good. Yes, it was a great place. We loved cleaning out there. And then it was a beautiful, beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Yes. I said, let's just stay over here for the night, would you? But that didn't happen. So yeah.
You were growing up.
When I was growing up, it was Charles Fry and my aunt Betty Farrin. And the post office used to be right downtown, right across from Farrin's store. Just a small post office. And then I think maybe it was the mid-70s that our church built the parish house where we have the Historical Society programs. And we were able to do that because we rented the lower part to the U.S. postal people. So we had a rental from the postal folk, and our little post office moved up there. William Dalk, and we shared our pastor with Bristol. We were sister churches. So Bill would do his service over here in the morning at 9:30, I think, and then be back to South Bristol for an 11 o'clock service. Right. Yes, I was very fortunate in that when the gentleman Harold Dodge, who headed up the building of the parish house, when he said, "You come with me, we'll go to Portland to the head post office and present what we would have to offer if they would rent our space for the post office." So off I went. Harold said, "Put on your best dress and we'll be all set." So yeah, it was great fun. That was in 75. I think we built the parish house in 73. Howard and I were great friends with Sally and Sonny Lehman and Betty and Buddy House, Nancy and Albert Thorpe, Jackie and Billy Kelsey. Yeah, it was just like when I was a kid, we all knew each other and visited each other with our little children. And yeah. Do you mean when South Bristol separated from Bristol? Or?
Right. Well, I guess that's what happened.
But that, yeah, way back when.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, I remember us all, my memory is that we all blended well together. When South Bristol lost its high school and our students came over here, that was difficult, I think. But it was hard it was very difficult for our town to lose the high school because that was where people went. They all went to the basketball games, supported the basketball games, and they would go to the softball and the baseball games, and that all stopped because we didn't have our own high school. We didn't have our own teams. We didn't have our own fundraising events. State declared our high school was too small. I think it was in 1960.
Okay.
And so...
Oh, then it went to Lincoln?
So some kids went to Lincoln and some kids came to Bristol. And then you lost your high school and everybody pretty much went to Lincoln. It was an interesting time. Yeah. Let's see, we all got our license fairly young, so I don't know that we did hang out. different houses would, or we'd have dances at because we still had the high school, and so we'd have dances at the Union Hall, the Masonic Hall, right?
Did you dress up at the dances?
Well, yes, we'd wear our felt skirts, and yes, we did. No, we went on the island a lot, and people my age call it Rutherfords. So we don't get that anymore. All my children say Rutherfords. So, but it was interesting because Rutherford's Island, we didn't pretty much go past the church because the Christmas Cove area was a summer colony. When I was a teenager and we all went to church, we went to Sunday school and church all through the winter. And we stopped going to church in the summer because the summer girls that came frequently wore hats and gloves, and they had lovely outfits. We didn't. So we didn't go to church in the summer. So that was crazy. Yes, there was a talk about your divide. That's where our big divide was between our local folk and our summer visitors. Mm-hmm. And there's still a piece of it there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that in South Bristol? Was that the Holly Inn?
Holly Inn.
The Holly Inn.
Bristol?
Yes.
Remember the Holly Inn?
No, actually.
Burned down
Before you.
3 of them burned, yeah. Right. I think the last one I do remember seeing. But, and now I'm not remembering when it burned, but. Wow. And my grandfather was an engineer on some of the small steamers that would bring people from Bath over to South Bristol and go to the Holly Inn. Pemaquid Harbour. My Farrin grandfather lived in Pemaquid Harbour for a while. Mm-hmm. And he used to row over to court my grandmother over to South Bristol. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My mom's brother, my Uncle Pud, used to live, and we'd live in Boothbay Harbour. So we would take my Uncle Ted would go over in his lobster boat and get off in East Boothbay and get a taxi and go over to Boothbay Harbour and visit Aunt Win and Uncle Pud. Then walk across that little footbridge and go bowling over in Boothbay Harbour. Oh. I know, they joke about that in the summer when people get down at the end of the peninsula in South Bristol and ask about how to get to Boothbay. And sometimes people say things like, well, you go back up, take a left, and there's a bridge right over. Well, of course there isn't. Yeah.
Did you ever brush with anyone famous growing up?
Well, I didn't when I was growing up that I remember, but because I'm still growing up, later on I did get to meet Willie Nelson on the airplane, yes, and once I was at Coveside having dinner, and Walter Cronkite was there, so I asked if I could speak with Walter, and went down, introduced myself to Walter, and as I was leaving the table, he said, "Well, thank you, Grace, for coming by," and so I said, "You're welcome, George." Because he used to sail into Coveside. He would tie his sailboat up there at Coveside. So I guess it was a regular summer event. I just happened to be there that time. Wow. So it was kind of fun. I'd like to be remembered as a kind and caring person, an accepting person, understanding or trying to understand differences in all of us and accepting that. Mm-hmm.
I think you do all those things very well.
Thank you, Heidi.